family is helped in Minnesota by passing this amendment. No job is created. No one gets health care. This does nothing to get us out of our current economic circumstance. But my message today is, we lost this floor vote, and this bill is coming up in front of the House in a few days. I don't know how that's going to go. But even if we lose that vote, and we're contemplating an amendment on the ballot in 2012, I know that we've lost forward, which is a concept that's hard to really explain. But the fact of the matter is that through this process over the last few weeks, Minnesotans have galvanized around this issue like I haven't seen in a long, long, long time. And I can tell you that this is not the future that Minnesota wants for itself. This is not the future of the Republican Party, and they have made a grave, grave mistake. And I think they're going to discover that very soon. But like the overreach we've seen in Indiana, in Ohio, and next door in Wisconsin, I think we're going to see that Minnesota wants something different for itself. Minnesotans want something different.
And we're going to fight this in 2012. And we are united. And I am here to say that I am going to work very closely with my LGBT brothers and sisters in my district, outside of my district, in the entire state of Minnesota to defeat this. And I am thankful for your leadership, Senator, for what you've been able to do to bring us together to fight against this. We need to protect the rights of minorities, and this is the beginning. I am with you. I am ready to fight. And I wish I didn't have to be here to do this today. But I promise you that I am going to spend a lot of energy and a lot of time trying to defeat this. This is what we need to do, and I thank all of you for coming here today to show us what is that we need to be doing together, because we are one. Thank you.
Questions?
Senator Dibble, what would it take to make Minnesota the first state to defeat one of these marriage amendments?
Well, it's going to take a tremendous campaign. That's a result of a large coalition of the LGBT community, our friends, our family, our allies, folks themselves who find themselves under a lot of pressure, this pressure of division and distraction, and this politics of resentment. We see the attacks against women and labor and people of minority racial communities. All are going to come together to reject the politics that's prevailing in the state capitol now. That's what it's going to take, and a lot of money, but that's going to happen, and we're going to see that come together.
Senators, what's your theory on why there's been very little discussion by the opposition about the moral issue? Most of the floor debate has been about let's let the people decide. Why is that?
An excellent question. I was going to actually talk about that, and I forgot. I don't know. I speculated on that in my concluding comments, and anyone else who wants to jump up and answer questions, please do. I think they're ashamed of themselves. I think they know they're wrong. I think the order from their operatives, their partisan handlers, was be quiet, because what we're doing is not where Minnesotans are at. And the more we talk about it, the more we antagonize and galvanize those who would be opposed to us. So they're responding to the pressure of a very vocal minority, repaying their political favor for having been elected, and they know that they're wrong, and they're being steered by a strong vocal minority in their party that's way out of step where mainstream Minnesota is.
I think also our Constitution
Got to come to the...
Our Constitution in and of itself is supposed to guarantee separation of church and state. And so, to be talking about we need to put this in our Constitution because of the moral imperative would fly in the face of the basic tenets of what's already in our Constitution.
Senator, if this were to pass, what would it then take to undo it? Would it then take a U.S. Supreme Court decision? Is that about it, or?
Well, yeah, we saw the case of Colorado, where Colorado passed a constitutional amendment a number of years ago that prohibited the passage of any anti-discrimination statutes or ordinances. And just because it was passed into the Constitution didn't make it constitutional. And so the Supreme Court overturned their amendment to their Constitution. So the U.S. Supreme Court could do the same, absolutely, and that might happen. Dubious under this current court, however, who is so partisan and who really does like to benefit the strong at the expense of the minority, of the weak. So we don't hold out hope that this current Supreme Court provides any hope, or it would take a subsequent amendment, by a vote of the people of Minnesota to unwind what had been done.
Just to follow up on that, another if it were to pass question.
Mm-hmm.
Senator Marty had that exchange with Senator Limmer at the end about the possibility of it still allowing civil unions, domestic partnerships. Would you foresee that being pursued under, if you guys were in control of the legislature?
Hard to predict. To know. I mean, it's hard to speculate. But let me just spend a minute about civil unions or domestic partnerships or some of these more discrete. The couple I talked about, James and Tom, were married in California, and they came to Minnesota and they had no legal relationship to each other. And it's anyone's guess whether or not civil unions would provide that sort of legal recognition, absent them having entered into a civil. It's just there's so much that can't be known, and there's absolutely no access to any of the federal rights and benefits, and there's no access to pensions and inheritance rights and things like that necessarily. It's the great unknowable. So I take no comfort from some idea that perhaps we can create some legal structures in the future. We see time and time again couples who enter into all these legal arrangements because they'll try to define that as some refuge. That's no refuge. Those legal instruments sometimes just don't hold up. Don't hold up after death. They don't hold up under family challenges and the like.
One other thing I'd like to say about that, and that is that if the legislature were to pass a law allowing civil unions and this amendment were added to the Constitution, someone would take that civil law to court to say our Constitution doesn't permit it.
Right. And I would encourage you to speak with Dale Carpenter in the back of the room, who's a university law professor who thinks that that is likely to happen, and that would be an open question. It's not easily answered.
Well, I'd like to follow up with Senator. May I follow up with Senator Burkham?
Oh, yeah.
Because Senator Burkham, that was a question that Senator Marty asked Senator Limmer on the floor to establish legislative intent. Is Senator Limmer misleading the body on that particular issue?
What Senator Limmer said was the legislature could decide that in the future, meaning the legislature could decide to pass a civil union bill. He did not say that it would necessarily be found constitutional by the courts.
Senator, you mentioned this air war we're going to have here in the next 18 months. How will that affect children who already are kind of under pressure, under the gun from classmates?
It's going to have a very serious and negative consequence for kids in our schools, this kind of angry, divisive campaign that's going to be fueled by millions and millions of dollars that come in from out of state that denigrate gay and lesbian people. And it's going to send a signal to those, that they're less than, that they're not worthy. It's also going to send a message to, into those schools where they haven't gotten a handle on bullying, that it's okay to pick on these kids, that they're less worthy, that they're not to be respected, that somehow they're wrong and they're bad and they're at the margins. That's what I tried to talk about on the floor. We're not going to have a discussion. Oh, it sounds so civilized and so mature in the debating parlor of the Senate. Let's have a discussion with the people of Minnesota. Well, that's not going to happen. It's going to be an ugly, vile, slanderous campaign against some citizens of the state of Minnesota. That's what's going to happen. That's what those senators just voted on. And it's a shame. It's a very shameful day for Minnesota and for the Minnesota Senate.
Senator, you said it's going to be an ugly battle, vicious campaign. What makes you so confident that we're actually going to win when you say you're going to?
Because I think times are changing. And I think as vicious and as vile as they get, it's like when they, remember how vicious they were against Paul Wellstone? It had a bounce-back effect in Minnesota and ended up helping him. They're not going to be able to help themselves. They're so carried away and their overreach is so extraordinary, Minnesotans are going to reject that.
This is the only time the full Senate has actually voted on this. The last 7 years.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you think you have the resources to mount a TBI campaign the other way? Do you think the resources will be there nationally and in the state?
We're going to work like heck to make sure we do have those resources, you bet. I don't know if we're going to match them dollar for dollar, but we're going to outfox them, and we're going to have and we're going to have more people.
Great.
All right.
Just one last one. The other side is accusing your side of being hypocritical by saying that we already have a law in the books, but at the same time introducing legislation to do away with that law and to allow same-sex marriage. What do you say about that hypocrisy statement you guys have?
Right. Well, I think the fact of the matter is, they want both sides of this argument as well. In closing off, one branch of government or letting another branch of government, and that was demonstrated by the Latz Amendment. The fact is, and I think Senator Sharon really hit the nail on the head. We have a law in the books, and that's the law of the land today, and we have court precedent and the like. But we also have a representative democracy, and we get to debate issues over and over and over again. Why would we simply want to just simply stop that process of debate and ensconce it in granite at this particular moment?
The only time any one of these ballot initiatives has been defeated was Arizona once, right? But then it came back in a different.
Correct.
There's 41 states.
31.
31.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you.
Are we done with the floor? Are we done?
Now I have to go back up there and continue working on other stuff.
Well, welcome to the